Good evening. It has been some time since I have had the pleasure of preaching with and for you, so I am excited tonight. Yeah. Deep water. That has always been a fear of mine. Not of drowning, and not even of being unable to see what's beneath me. In fact, if anything, it's clear deep water that terrifies me the most. I can see everything that's down there and just how far I am from the bottom. So I don't like swimming in pools that are deeper than about 12 feet. And even 12 feet sometimes is a little too much. Don't put on goggles or look down when I'm in 12 feet of water. And in dark water, if I can't touch the bottom, I have to keep myself from imagining just how far away that sand is from my toes. And yet, water draws me. After graduating from college, I did a little recruitment work for my alma mater, which had me acting as the road runner, traveling all around the New England area. And I would plan my routes so that they always took me as close as possible to water. And even if I couldn't see it from my car, I could look at my GPS and see the blue, and I would know that it was right over there. And then later, when I was getting ready to finish up seminary, and I was seeking a call, without even realizing it at the time, all 4 of the parishes that I was in conversation with were in cities on the water. Water is our lifeblood, as humans, and even more so as Christians. It has spiritual significance all throughout Scripture. And so we, of course, have strong theological ties to it as well. Water is purifying, cleansing. It's creative, life-sustaining, reviving. It's also dangerous, chaotic, and destructive. And we find all of those elements and themes in our Scripture. Remember, setting is never just setting. Just as literary tools and techniques like repetition and sentence structure and phrasing help us to better understand what we read, in Scripture, setting also conveys spiritual significance, and it holds clues to unlocking those deeper meanings hidden in the text. So, what clues do we get to follow this morning? What meaning can we unlock? It's not this morning anymore. That slipped out. I told you it's been a long time since I've preached at night. This evening. So let's walk through the gospel reading. Jesus is preaching. He's teaching. He's trying to anyway, but the crowds are closing in on him, and he hardly has room to breathe, so he looks over, and what is sitting there empty but a boat? And so he gets into that boat, and he says, "Hey, Simon Peter, pull out a little ways from shore." Nobody had concept with Jesus of what a personal bubble was. And so there he goes out into the shallow water, where it's calm and safe and relaxing, so much so that he sits down to teach. Even though he is a ways from the shore, even though people can't see him all that well, he sits. And when he's done teaching, he says, "Simon Peter, pull out further into the deep water." And it's there that the action starts. The real work begins. Deep water is intuitively connected to chaos. It's where the water gets dangerous, where all of those unpredictable elements come into play. Safety is no longer assured, and you could be swallowed whole just as easily as cleansed and made new. Luke puts the focus of the story, the main event, in deep water for a reason. He and the people to whom he wrote perceived their world as chaos. Luke was writing around 80 to 90 CE, and there was no stability. This was a time of political and spiritual turmoil. Rome continued to be oppressive and repressive. There was increased hostility between traditional Judaism and Jesus' followers. And the early church itself was struggling. Though the movement was growing, there was dissension and disagreement among those early leaders as they sought to establish what this new religion looked like. Jesus, at the time, had been gone for some 60 years or so. And so factions of early Christianity were breaking out all throughout the world, and the rules were changing and developing. The Lucan community was, figuratively, out in deep water. And so Luke, in this gospel story, puts Jesus right there too. Jesus and Peter are out in that chaos, trying to catch fish, in the exact same place that Peter and his friends had been fishing the night before to no avail. Last night, they struggled. The hours were long, the toil was arduous, and they received nothing for their labor. Not one fish was caught. Today, Jesus was there. The hours were short, the toil was light, and the catch was beyond plentiful. The multitudes of fish that threatened to sink not just Peter's boat, but the boat of James and John as well, who had come to join him. And Jesus says his now famous line, "From now on, you will be catching people." It's a great line. So long as you are careful to extract the violence out of that metaphor. Because unlike when we catch fish, we are not catching people to force them out of their habitats, starve them of what they need to survive, and drain the life out of them for our own sustenance. No, we are catching people with the love and the teachings and the miracles of God. We are joining them in the chaos, making sense of all of it together, and hopefully someday coming into new life that water also promises us. So here are the takeaways for today. I'm just going to give them out to you flat. First, go to the deep water. It scares me, I know, but we have to do it. It's dangerous and you never know what will happen, but that is where God is. It's where Jesus went. And it's where so much of our lives are lived. So go. And number 2, don't go alone. You've got to take Jesus with you, or you'll be just like Peter and his crew, up all night fishing with nothing to show for it. Jesus can come in the form of prayer, or he can come in the form of a friend or a trusted companion. Just make sure he is there. We cannot live our lives afraid to take risks, to enter that chaos, to cast our nets and pray that God will help us. God has never called anyone into a life of safety. When he says, Don't be afraid. You can be darn sure whatever he's following that up with is something that will terrify you. But that is how lives are changed. We have to venture out of the shallows and into the deep to really make a difference, to reap those rewards. And if we're willing to do it, if we are willing to step outside of what we know and embrace someone or something new, then it won't be the waters that threaten to pull us under. Instead, we will be covered with the weight of all the good God can give.